All right, I think you're good to go.
Thank you, Colton. Hello, I am Juliana Reshik and I serve as the chair of the Continuing Nurse Education Committee of the Kansas State Board of Nursing. I ask that the members of the Continuing Nurse Education Committee to respond to a roll call signifying their presence at this open meeting via conference call. Rebecca Sonder,
Present.
Audrey Goldsmith, Gwendolyn
Present.
Lloyd. Sorry, was that Audrey?
Yes, present.
Okay, thanks, Audrey. Gwendolyn Lloyd,
Juliana, this is Carol Moreland, and Gwen is actually not going to be here today.
okay, thanks, Carol. Genevieve Gahn,
Here.
Melanie Barnett, Laura Arbel, Kanetta Markilians, Karen Oftenberg,
This is Colton. Looks like Karen might be in the attendees.
Can you transfer her over to the participants, Colton, or will she need to call back in?
I'm going to see if I can just do it here.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
There we go.
Hey,
This is Karen.
hi, Karen. Thanks for
Hi.
joining.
Also,
I-
FYI, I do have 2 phone numbers in the attendees, so those might be your other missing people. Not sure. Just putting that out there.
Okay. Well, I think, Carol, I think we will need our other attendees to have a quorum. Is that correct?
It looks to me like we have 4 here, right? Well, we actually, yeah, we have you, Juliana. 1, Becky, Audrey, Giovanni, and Karen. 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 5 out of
Out of
we have
9.
5 out of 9.
So we should be okay.
Should be okay. You're just
Okay.
there. Yeah.
I ask that the following board staff members to signify their attendance. Carol Moreland, Executive
Here.
Administrator. Chelsea Stevenson, Education Secretary.
Present.
Public comment allows individuals to address the Continuing Nurse Education Committee about their concerns, but the Kansas Open Meetings Act, which is known as COMA, does not require that the Continuing Nurse Education Committee to provide public comment or answer questions from individuals. As we will not know what comments an individual may make, we would want to provide notice to the public of our intent to discuss a particular matter so that the public may listen and observe our discussion. Public comment will not be taken today due to that concern, and because this is a meeting conducted remotely by Zoom and YouTube, where the connection may be lost over time and the time of the meeting may not allow everyone who is present to comment. Because we are conducting this public meeting remotely by Zoom and YouTube, I state for the record the following information. Number 1, on November 23rd, 2020, the board sent notice of the meeting for the Continuing Nurse Education Committee to all individuals who have requested notice of the committee's meetings. Additionally, the notice and agenda were posted on the board's website, ksbn.kansas.gov. The notice contains the link and passcode to access the meeting by Zoom and the link to access the meeting by YouTube so that the public may attend this meeting free of charge. The notice also advises individuals to contact the board's office at 785-296-2967 if they experience any technical issues during the meeting. Number 2, you may obtain a copy of the notice and agenda at the website or by sending an email to carol.moreland@ks.gov with the subject line, request for the agenda, and the board staff will send it to you. The state of disaster emergency due to COVID-19 pandemic is declared by Governor Kelly and extended by the State Finance Council will expire on December 15th, 2020. Because the requirements of COMA are not suspended, we will be conducting this meeting pursuant to COMA and KAR 16-20-1 concerning compliance with COMA during an emergency declaration. The connections to Zoom and YouTube are the only mediums for interactive communication offered for this meeting. Each member of the committee, board staff, or presenter shall state the person's name and title each time the person speaks or votes, as the case may be. Each participant to this meeting shall ensure microphones, phones, or other electronic devices are mute when the participant is not speaking. Each motion will be clearly stated before the committee votes, and the chair will announce the results of the final vote. A statement or motion will clearly identify and authorize by delegation each member of the committee or staff who will be permitted to sign any document on behalf of the board. A recording of the meeting will be posted to the board's website. The committee has the following items listed on the agenda: call to order, review of on-site packet, additions or revisions to the agenda, announcements, approval of minutes for the meeting held in September of 2020, unfinished business, new business, agenda for the committee meeting in March of 2021, and then adjournment. This meeting is now called to order, and the committee will now consider the next item on its agenda. So we will review the on-site packet. And I don't believe there is one. Is that correct?
Yeah, this is Carol Moreland. There is no on-site packet. Sorry.
Okay, great. So, sorry, I'm flipping between my screens here. Okay, so is there any additions or revisions to the agenda? And hearing none, I would take a motion to approve the agenda as written.
Madam Chair, I so move to approve the agenda as written. This is Rebecca, board member.
Thanks, Rebecca. Is there a second?
Smith, board member, I second. I don't think it did yet.
Sorry, will you repeat that again? The second?
This is Adri Goldsmith, board member, I second.
Thanks, Adri. And any discussion? All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
This is
Aye.
Karen, aye.
Any opposed? And the agenda stands. Moving on to announcements. I would just like to welcome our new committee members. I know that we have several, Genevieve and Audrey, and I'm not saying it right, I apologize. Adri?
It's like Adrian, just Adri.
Adri, okay. Well, welcome. We're glad you're here, and we're honored to have you be a part of our group and help us ensure that continuing education is conducted in a safe and effective manner for our state. So thanks for joining our group and for the time that you're dedicating.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
this is Carol Moreland, Executive Administrator, and I have an announcement I would like to share with the group.
Please, yes.
Yes, we have, I'm very pleased to announce that we have filled the CNE Education Specialist position. That's a position that's been open for a while. It's not an easy position to fill sometimes, but we are extremely lucky because we have filled it with Chelsea Stevenson, whom you all know as Chelsea is the Education Secretary. However, probably what most of you did not realize is that Chelsea, while working as the Education Secretary with us, has been very busy working on her degree in education. And COVID kind of stopped her getting her bachelor's finished because she cannot do the internship because of COVID. So she has went on and she's working on master's level courses to get her master's in education. So anyway, Chelsea next week will be moving into the CNE Education Specialist position. And I'm so thrilled because she's going to do a wonderful job with it. But you will no longer have her as Education Secretary. We will be filling that position, but I just wanted to share that wonderful news with all of you.
Well, congratulations, Chelsea. It's well-deserved, and we're looking forward to working with you in your new role.
Thank you.
Thank you for all you've done for us in your education secretary role. You certainly make my job a whole lot easier. So I appreciate everything you've done for us and look forward to seeing what you bring to us in the future. Any other announcements? Okay, moving on to our minutes from September 15th. Did folks get a chance to review those?
Madam Chair, this is Chelsea Stevenson. I just wanted to let you know that I do have motions prepared that I can read when we get to that point.
That sounds great. Thank you, Chelsea. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes if the committee so desires.
This is Adri Goldsmith.
Is there,
I move to approve the minutes.
This is Giovanni Gonay. I'll second that.
Thanks, Giovanni. Any comment? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 And any opposed? And the minutes are approved. Thank you for that. We don't have any unfinished business. So moving on to new business, our IOA statistical report.
Yeah, Madam Chair, this is Carol Moreland, and that is actually on page 6 in your packet. You know, we continue to have a lot of IOAs. The majority of them are approved. There's a few that do get denied. Most of them are not because it doesn't apply for CNE. It's just that they haven't submitted what they need to for us to be able to approve it. And I think part of that probably is they just don't read the directions really well as far as what they've attached. But the process as a whole is much, much better than it used to be since it's electronic, and the turnaround time is just a matter of a day or two compared to, it used to be probably close to a week, I would bet. So that's really good. Long-term applications, you can see the numbers there. Single providers, we've seen a few of those. And then we haven't seen any IV therapy provider applications since we last met. But that's all on page 6.
Thank you for that report, Carol. Is this something we need to approve, or is this just for our information?
I think it's just kind of an informational thing that we bring each time.
Program coordinator education.
Yeah, this is Carol Moreland again. We probably haven't done very much of this since we met last time. We didn't think probably it was necessary with the group that we were looking at, but we definitely will continue to go on. We did a lot, before the annual report, and then our plan is to continue to do at least one a quarter so that we can catch the providers that should be submitting renewal applications so that they know what they need to submit.
Great. Thank you, Carol. Moving on down to our long-term provider relinquishments, and it looks like we don't have any of those.
Actually,
Sorry.
we have been notified of 2 that just, one of them just happened like yesterday. The other one of them is Catherine Strecker. They've notified us that they're going to relinquish theirs. And then the second one is Remedy Healthcare. That was the one that we just got notified of yesterday. And they will be keeping all of their own records and stuff. So if we needed to get those or anything.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that information. That's, if I remember right, that's just information for us. That's not one we approve either. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah. It's just information.
Okay. Thank you for that. So then moving down to our 5-year renewal applications. Hagan and Associates is our first one. And I believe that starts on page 7. So.
Do you want me to tell you who was assigned to review it?
That would be great, Carol. Mm-hmm.
Okay, didn't know if you had that or not, but it is Juliana and Giovanni.
So, Giovanni, I'm open to what you might have to share. I glanced through things, and from the review that was done at the by board staff, and then it appears that they are meeting our expectations from what I have seen. Giovanni, did you find anything that did not?
No, it does meet our expectations. The only question that I had was that whoever reviewed this file made a few notations about a couple of things being outdated. Just wanted to kind of get some information about like what kind of information was outdated.
Yeah, this is Carol, and I'm the one who did that. And we run into this probably every time. Some of the committee members can speak up. According to our requirements on the bibliography, that it has to be, I'm trying to find that right in front of me here. Current bibliography that's reflected. It shall include books published within the last 10 years and periodicals published within the last 5 years, or both. And if you look through this very extensive bibliography on some of this, there is stuff that is outdated from that. It's some of these speakers have a very extensive bibliography, so I don't know if you as the committee wants to look at every one, or if you just want to say like overall. But this has been a concern that's been brought up several times, is if there's anything outdated in that. It's usually stated that it's outdated. So that's kind of where I came from with that.
So one of the things that, and Carol, I'd love some feedback on this. One of the things that I look for is, if there are outdated, that they do have current references and in addition to, and that appears to be here. Is that okay?
Well, I personally think that's okay. In the revisions, the possible revisions that are in here that we're going to talk about later, there's something called classical references, because there truly are probably references at times that are truly very, very good references, but they're outdated by what we were looking at right now. However, there may have been nothing published since then that is of that level. And so we kind of have to leave it up to the presenter somewhat to say, this is the best reference like this that I could find, even though it is outdated. So that's just kind of my thoughts. You kind of look at it overall, but I don't know what the rest of the committee thinks.
And I think that's a great suggestion, Carol. I think that it is important for them to at least make a notation that they have been looking for more current information, but they haven't, found any. I think it is important for us to know that at least they're making an effort to find something more current.
Yeah, I agree.
Any other concerns or discussion about this one?
I just have a question, This is Becky.
Hi, Becky.
The application itself was just pretty huge and a lot of reading. I mean, I wasn't assigned to it, but I cruised through it to get to the next one. And is that typical that they have such a huge, it's so detailed? Does the application process require these to be that detailed, that they arrive so huge, several hundred pages? Is that normal, Carol?
Well, this is part of my frustration with this process. If you look at this, all we ask for is the instructors, kind of like their vitae, their education and experience, documenting knowledge and expertise. Okay, but we have probably 100 pages here that just kind of goes on and on about all of their presentations and all of that. It would be really, really nice if we were able to get them to pare down what they submit in their application. You will notice one coming up here where they have actually submitted like PowerPoints and stuff like that. We do not ask for that. And we've told them that. The only time they need to send a PowerPoint is if there's a slide that has their bibliography on it. That's all we want to see then. We don't want to see all of the content. We want to see the learning objectives, the behavioral objectives and stuff like that. So to answer your question, it seemed like this time there were two quite long ones.
Right.
And I feel like, as being a staff person, unless you direct us otherwise, that I pretty well put in the packet what they have submitted. The only time that I will not put in, if they've submitted something, is if they submit a roster that has personal information about the attendees. I will email them back and say, I don't need the roster with the information filled in because it becomes public record when we put it in the packet. And I will not put the nurses' addresses. The nurse's name and the license number is public. Everything else is not. Where they work is not. And I wouldn't want my information out there like that. And so I just usually email them and say, can you just send me the template? That's all we need to see is the template. We don't need to see it filled in. I think we still have some work to do with that. I think they just want to submit everything and then we can figure out what we need.
Right.
But in some ways, it's more frustrating on our part because, it takes a lot of time to do it. And it's really information that we do not need. We don't need all these pages of bibliography from all these speakers that go back for years and years.
Mhm.
It's truly, they're national speakers. That's how they do it. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah, it does.
we'll
I
see
was-
in this one, this is a very big packet because 2 or 3 of these were almost 100 pages long. Or
Uh-huh.
more. Yeah, I agree.
Well, it's just hard to evaluate overall when they hand in so many hundreds of pages. Surely every one that they offer is not like this one. I don't know. Maybe they're just giving us the 2 biggest ones that they have. I don't know. But thank you. It did. I figured they were going to just let us figure out what we needed to approve them.
Yeah, I think unless you guys direct staff to just put in here what we need,
Yeah.
we've just always put in what they've submitted to us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good, bad, or whatever. Yeah.
I think
Thank you.
that's not a bad idea, Carol, and that might make it easier, particularly in the electronic format that we're reviewing these in. It is cumbersome to page through all of those documents. Would that take a motion from the committee, or could we just give the direction to just provide us with the documents that are needed? And then if there are questions, we could go back through and look up items if we needed. But
I think you could just direct, it'll be Chelsea. You could direct Chelsea to pilot maybe for the next time, the March meeting, the ones that we receive, and just submit the documents that basically go right down our checklist so that it would be much easier to just go down the checklist and see whether they have it or not. Would that be helpful?
I like
like
that suggestion.
I like that idea too, because if they're missing a certificate so that we can make sure all the required elements are on that certificate, it's embedded in that stack somewhere in there. And I spent hours trying to find it to realize that maybe it wasn't there. That would be so helpful if we could just have the documents that reflect from the template what they're needed, to meet the requirement. That would be nice. Instead of having to go through 150 or 200 pages just to find the parts and pieces we need from the template.
Chelsea, would you help us with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great idea and will certainly make it easier to navigate through.
And
Maybe take us down from 700 pages to 6. Who knows?
There you go. Maybe we'll get some
But-
feedback from you next time on how you felt like that went too, Chelsea. If it makes it more complicated for you, then we can reevaluate. But
Well, is there a way that we could maybe even scoot that more forward and have the provider know that expect them to kind of eventually do that too from their perspective before they send that packet full of stuff? Is there a way that they can streamline the provider when they're completing their application to us, that they just put in those parts and pieces that we need and not the whole thing? Like
Yeah.
the PowerPoints, like Carol was saying, the PowerPoints, and we don't need all those just tons of pages of their resume and all that kind of stuff.
This is Carol, and I'll just let you know that we have shared this approval checklist with the providers and made it very clear that what we need is just for them to go down this checklist and basically submit what they need to show that they meet this checklist.
I figured you
maybe
had.
to Becky's point, could we say something on that checklist? Please note, extra items will not be shared with the committee.
Yeah, there you go. That's a thought. Karen, you've had experience, haven't you? Lots of it, getting your application ready for reapproval. is what we're asking just kind of unrealistic from the employer's side who's putting all this together to get approval?
No, and I think sometimes people think more is better. So they're gonna get everything.
Is that why they throw everything at us to look at?
I don't know, and maybe those impressive resumes. I don't know, but yeah, I agree.
So you
with
think
what
it's
everybody-
unrealistic to think that that's ever going to happen, where they just give us what we need and not all that other stuff?
I don't know. We could try.
I have a
Well-
question.
Okay.
I have a question. Would it be inappropriate to tell them that their packet would be returned unless they submit what is requested only?
I do think that would, I mean, that might get their attention. It might, I don't know, we might want to take a softer approach, at least in the beginning, but
Right.
I do think that would
because
get their attention. Yeah.
it does put a lot of work on the staff to go through all of that.
Yeah.
And they have a lot to do already.
Right.
That's true. I know. I know.
But it
I
only
like our-
happened one time.
That's true.
Well, I like our suggestion. Maybe Chelsea can help us out a little bit.
And then I'm not, I think to further point, I'm not opposed to putting a note on the checklist that additional items will not be shared with the board. So maybe then they will stop sending them. They know we're not seeing them. So, okay. So for Hagan and Associates, Chelsea, would you want to maybe read a potential motion?
Sure. Is there a committee member who would like to move to approve the long-term provider 5-year renewal application for Hagan and Associates LLC?
This is Rebecca, board member, also move.
Thank you, Rebecca. Is there a second?
This is Adri Goldsmith, board member, and I second.
Thank you, Adri. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving on to Mid-America Wound Healing Society. Carol, can you share who had that one?
Sure. Just before I do that, we do have Laura on. She just chatted and said she's really sorry, but she has her microphone is not working. So she is
Okay.
attending.
Okay.
So just want to let you know that. But she
Okay.
completely agrees. So, okay.
Oh, good. Thank you, Laura.
I'll try to watch that. Mid-America Wound Healing, that was actually Becky and Melanie. Melanie's one of our new board members who must not be here. So it's probably Becky.
Yep.
And it's on page 120 of your packet, if you're trying to jump to it.
It was pretty good. Again, very thorough and a lot of it. And I agreed with Carol's comments, but I did have a couple of things I wanted to bring forward. Their bibliographies was 197 and 201 respectively. No one is ever going to bother to read or look at something so large. So I wonder, why do they do that if no one ever is going to look at that, number one. And number two, they had really old, again, there was articles on there quite old, which makes me think that no one has looked at that for years to update it. So I just think, I wonder if we could even put a limit on the bibliography sizes. That was really unbelievable. 201 bib references. And then their offering announcement, it was email. Is that right, Carol? And I've never read an application where both examples were email.
Yeah.
Email. And I know it's COVID time, and no person-to-person stuff was probably happening. And we're so used to having a brochure of some sort with all the elements was on the brochure that's required in our statute. But we happened to get the 2 email presentations this time. So they were missing the KSB and required language on their offering announcement. So I'm not sure if that, it was only because they were doing it so differently this year, or they just didn't meet it. And then they are missing their behavioral objectives is on the evaluation form at the end of the presentation instead of at the beginning. And let's see, I never did see the PowerPoint that had the bibliography, but I heard you say it's okay if it's on their if it's on their PowerPoint. I heard you say that was okay. I think that was the only thing. The offering was on the announcement. And there again, so I don't know, is that just because, Carol, it's the time of COVID and that's why they're just kind of doing it all email?
Oh, you'll notice that one of the announcements, though, was actually from 2017. So that wasn't in COVID.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is just the way that they do it.
It's just so different. And you can tell by my age, and I've been around for so long, I am not used to getting CE information that way via an email because it's missing the required elements on the email advertisements, for CEs. And then I didn't see a certificate because I always check that the required elements are on their certificate of attendance, and I didn't even see a certificate on the second one. The wound healing.
All we really need is to see one certificate. We don't need to see it for each one of them because if we know that they're using the correct template,
yeah.
So you wouldn't see one for each, or I never told them.
Okay.
And the certificate is actually on page 138, the example.
Oh. Well, see now, because there was such a huge volume,
I know.
and you're flipping through just to find one little piece of certificate paper, so I could have missed it. So, overall, it was just the small little things, but those bibliographies are just not necessary to be handing out to the public after a 2-hour CE.
So I appreciate the discussion. Becky, anything that you would see that would prevent us from moving this forward? Okay.
No. It was very thorough, just like Hagen's was, Emily's. It was very thorough.
So Chelsea, would you have a proposed motion?
There a committee member that would like to move to approve the long-term provider 5-year renewal application for Mid-America Wound Healing Society?
This is Karen Offenberg, committee member. I so move.
Thank you, Karen. Is there a second?
Yes, Giovanni Gonet, I'll second that.
Thank you, Giovanni. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And motion carries. So we'll take a look at TCG Media.
Okay, this is Carol Moreland. TCG Media was Adri and Laura. And so again, Laura is in the chat. So I guess if there's anything Laura wants to add, she can put it in the chat and I would be more than glad to bring her comments forward.
Okay.
So this is Adri Goldsmith, board member. We had the outdated bibliography. And so this was my first time looking at these and needs better information on the evaluation form. You had noted they had generic examples. So I didn't catch anything else, but again, there was a lot to go through on that. And I probably need to talk to Becky about how she goes through that.
Oh,
And kind of what I picked, this is Carol, what I picked up and why I put my comments on the evaluation form is there's no ability to evaluate each objective, which they're supposed to have the ability to evaluate each objective and each presenter. And the one that they submitted was just like a real generic one. You know, how was it? You know, I can't find it. I can't find the page right now, but
well, that's a pretty important piece on the evaluation form. Why do it if you can't get that kind of feedback back?
This is Chelsea Stevenson, staff member. Laura did put in the comments, I do not see any reason to not renew, but do agree with Audrey and Carol.
Okay. Thank you, Chelsea. Okay.
because what we were
Adrian,
actually, what I was looking at as far as the evaluation, I believe, is on page 311 and 312. And they just kind of write, you know, the achievement of objectives. Evidently, they're supposed to write like if I attended it, I'm supposed to write the objectives in there. And then same thing about presenter, which I would question as to whether that will actually get done, but I could be wrong.
so I don't know, Audrey, how you feel. I appreciate what Laura shared with us. Is this something that you would like to give some communication back to them? Go ahead and approve it, but give some communication back? Or do you feel like that those are concerns that would prevent us from approving this?
No, from what I understand, that's what we've been doing. Now, what have we been doing on the outdated bibliography? Have we been sending them anything back on that?
This is Carol, and what we've basically done is just send them a reminder about the bibliography, you know, the criteria that we have as a reminder so that they're aware of it. And hopefully they won't do that again. I will share with you that Laura did put another comment and said, could we make a recommendation that they add individual presenters to their eval form? And we've done that in the past. If there's been one or two things, we went ahead, you all have went ahead and approved them. It's just in the communication that goes out to us. It's just, these are reminders, you know, that you need to add the individual presenters, because I think what the deal is they just have this evaluation form made up. And so they don't actually make one up for each presentation to individualize it for that presentation. They just kind of expect the attendee to do that for them, so to speak. And maybe that gets done. I don't know.
Well, I don't see any reason not to approve, but with those recommendations, I'm sure they'd appreciate it to be able to make those adjustments.
Chelsea, do you have a proposed motion you might share with us?
Yes. Is there a committee member who would like to move to approve the long-term provider 5-year renewal application for TCG Media LLC pending recommendations made by the CNE Committee?
And
This is Rebecca, board member, also move.
thank you, Rebecca. Is there a second?
This is Karen, committee member. I second.
Thank you, Karen. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? Motion carries. So we'll go on now to a new long-term provider, Just Some Podcasts, LLC.
Yeah, this is Carol Moreland, and that was Gwen, who's not here, and then Kanetta and Karen.
Okay.
And this one starts on page 465 in your handbook, and it is much shorter. I think this program coordinator has done a much better job of just giving us what we need, which was appreciated.
We'll send him a note telling him that, right?
It was, I was scrolling through all those long ones and I was like, holy cow. I got down to that bottom one. It was like, this is Karen. Do you want me to go ahead?
Yes, please, Karen.
I thought it was done very well. The only thing I noticed missing on his second offering, the DOT medical exams, I couldn't find the pilot test results on the time, but he did have it on the first offering. So I don't know if it just got overlooked or he just forgot to include it, but his was very thorough. So I would have no doubt that they do pilot test each session.
I thought somehow maybe he put those two together someplace. I'm trying to flip through this real fast.
I was a little confused. He mentioned fractions of hours at one place, but then he also said that they don't give partial credit. But I guess I don't know. I guess they could still, it looked like most of his were 1 hour podcasts,
Yeah.
But at least he had spelled out if he does give fraction. Because I think he mentioned too that they might do some face-to-face, but most were podcasts. And his bib was up to date.
Gosh, he did several things right. Wow.
Yay.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Chelsea, would you have a potential recommended motion?
Yes. Is there a committee member who would like to move to approve the long-term provider initial application for Just Some Podcast LLC?
This is Adri Goldsmith, board member, and I move to approve.
Thank you, Adri. Is there a second?
Giovanni Gonet, I'll second that.
Thank you, Giovanni. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. And so now we'll go on to review the long-term care CNE provider annual report.
Yeah, this is Carol Moreland, and actually on page 515 in your packet, we kind of have an update here. This has been an interesting process, trying to find some of these. You know, like Atkins Physical Therapy and Ergonomics, I can't even find them on the internet, you know, and they haven't submitted in 2019 or 2020. So I'm not even sure if they're in business. Bailey Medical Services, that one did not submit in 2019 or 2020. So when I went on their website, it still had their policies about being a KSBN approved provider. So I sent him an email and kind of explained and got a prompt reply, very concerned about what he needed to do. And so we let him know what he needed to do. He needed to basically pay us for 2 years and do 2 annual reports. And Chelsea, has he done that?
No, he has not. He reached out to me via email, asked how to submit the payment and the information, and then I've not heard anything since.
And actually, he was one that was to have submitted a renewal application to be reviewed at this meeting. He was notified of that in September, and we did not receive that. And then Care for Associates, they actually they submitted a program evaluation plan only, but not the statistical data. So I just need to follow up with them and tell them that they need to finish the rest of that. Some of these, again, I'm having a real hard time because whoever we have as their program coordinator, is evidently no longer there. And so I'm trying to figure out who I can send communication to that they might pay some attention to. Mercy Hospital, Fort Scott, they closed in February of 2019. So I think we could pretty well take them off because they didn't submit in 19 or 20. And I'm sure that's probably why they didn't submit in 2019. So we're still kind of working on this. I'm not sure what all the answers are as far as if we can't find the people and stuff. I did put in your packet, and it's on page 518. This is out of the Nurse Practice Act. It's KAR 60-9-107. And L2, it says, if the provider does not continue to meet the criteria for current approval established by the regulation, or if there is a material misrepresentation of any fact with the information submitted to the board by an approved provider, approval may be withdrawn or conditions related to the providership may be applied by the board after giving the approved provider notice and the opportunity to be heard. So I think the board does have some actions that can take place if you want to move down that way. My suggestion would be if you're interested in utilizing this with some of these providers, that perhaps we have an executive session in March in this committee, and maybe Jan, our legal counsel, can come and talk with you about how this process actually would take place. That would be kind of my suggestion, because I'm sure there's several steps involved with this. And I don't know what all those steps are because I don't know that we've went down that path. But, some of these people have not submitted it for at least 2 years. And so.
I think that's a good suggestion, Carol. Maybe at our meeting, if we could see, it looks like most of these people you've talked to in at least August of this year. So maybe we could take a look at this and removing Fort Scott. I'm reading Advent Health is working with corporate to send payment. Maybe by our next meeting that will be taken care of. If we could kind of maybe get a cleaned up list and then go into our executive meeting, because, if Adkins physical therapy doesn't even exist anymore, then it'd be good to hear from Jan what we need to do to remove that.
This is Karen. Did KU get cleared up? I did talk to them after our last meeting, and I believe they relinquished the Hayes providership but kept the Pittsburgh. I just started back to work with them again, just very, very part-time. I can check some more on that just to make sure I'm saying that right.
This is Chelsea Stevenson. They did reach out to me and let me know that they wanted to relinquish. I let them know that I needed a formal letter stating that and the relinquishment date, and I've not yet gotten that. So I just need an email from them indicating that they want to relinquish their providership and then where those documents and records will be stored for 2 years.
Okay, I can work on that.
So Carol, can you make arrangements for Jan to join us for an executive session?
Yes, I certainly can in March, and Chelsea and I will work and see if we can find out any more. It's just, when you don't know who you're supposed to contact, or, it makes it kind of difficult.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, I can certainly do that. Yes.
Okay. Do you need a motion for that report, Carol, or is that just an informational?
I think it's probably just informational, and you've just given us direction to arrange for Jan to do an executive session. So we can do that.
So then moving on to our 5-year legislative review. Sorry, I should have looked. It's about 520 page, I believe.
Yeah, it's on page 519, and it's 60-4-103 that covers fees and travel expenses for school approval and approval of continuing education providers. And from my standpoint, I don't see any changes that need to take place with this unless you all identify some.
Chelsea, do you have a proposed motion?
Yes, let me pull that up real quick. Is there a committee member who would like to move to approve KAR 60-4-103 as written as a part of the 5-year legislative review process?
This is Rebecca. I so move.
Thank you, Rebecca. Is there a second?
This is Adri Goldsmith, board member. I second.
Thank you, Adri. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion passes. Our next review is of 60-9-105.
Yeah, this is Carol Moreland again. Just before we move into that, I just wanted to let you know that Kanata is in the chat room also. She had some trouble getting in, and so she's been listening in on her phone since the meeting started, but she did have just some podcasts. She reviewed it. She's glad it was approved. Oh, she's on. Okay. Kanata,
Hi, Kanata.
there you are, right? Okay.
Are you not looking at the moment then? Oh, okay. Well, what shift do you work?
Okay. On page 520 in the handout, these are, it was probably a couple of years ago, there were some revisions, proposed revisions done to 60-9-105, 60-9-106, and 60-9-107. And they kind of got set aside for a little bit, but I wanted to get them out because I think this might help some of the questions that have come up. So if you want me just to kind of go through here and kind of talk about what are the changes, if that's how you want me to do this.
That'd be great, Carol.
Okay. On page 520, the only change is what you see underlined as used in this article of the board's regulations. It's just kind of cleaning up the language a little bit there. But on page 521, this is where they put in classic reference. And I kind of talked to that earlier. The classic reference would be either a book published more than 10 years ago or a periodical published more than 5 years ago that is the most current available source with a recognized value pertinent to the content of an offering. So that actual definition we haven't had that before. So that would be in addition to the definitions that we currently have. And then on page 522 is, there's always been some question about if it's independent study and all of that, exactly how do we figure the amount of continuing education credit? So the group that worked on this before, and some of you on here may have been that have been on the committee for a little while, but there's something called the Mergener formula. And it's a formula utilized to recognize the amount of continuing education credit provided by a program based upon the material utilized when measured against complexity, time, questions, and participant feedback. And I didn't have all of this in time to get it in your packet, but there's kind of a calculation that's done, and it looks at the number of words, the number of questions, the difficulty, familiarity level, the estimated time, and then there's a conversion like factor, and then that will tell you the number of CEUs. And several other places utilize this formula. So if you want, I can put more information in your packet next time about this formula so that you can kind of review that if you want to. But the group that looked at this before evidently felt like this was a very good formula to add to our regulation that would help with independent study. So that's kind of the proposed changes to 60-9-105. And then 60-9-106 on page 523, it used to just say an offering presented by an approved long-term or single offer or single provider. Okay, they kind of changed that to say a little bit single offering provider or a national organization whose focus is patient safety and improving nursing practice. They tried to kind of drill down on that national organization a little bit more. And then on page 524, they just put in there the rationale. They're talking about an IOA here, and that's an individual offering approval. And they just added a rationale statement that applies the meaning of CNE as defined in our statute. And I think that's probably good because some people that submit IOAs, they don't really drill it down as far as the rationale statement about how that meets the definition of CNE. They just think it was a nice offering that they attended and they think they should get CNE. And sometimes they don't really understand the definition that we try to follow when we approve CNE. Page 525, they have under E, a maximum of 15 contact hours shall be accepted for renewal of certification in ACLS, PALS, and similar standardized recertification courses developed by the American Heart Association, Emergency Nurses Association, or MANT, and it would be a maximum of 15 contact hours each licensing period. So the research is just saying the most that you can have is 15 for those particular ones listed. And then 60-9-107 kind of talks about, what they have to submit and stuff. And they have to submit down under C, it has advertisements, offering announcements, and certificates of completion. And then the published information and each certificate of completion should contain the following language. And this is one thing that we see is this language is not always on the certificate of completions. So that's what they were trying to get at there. And then page 528, they do have, to expand upon the current bibliography, they have classic references, if included, should be limited to less than 25% of the bibliography. So that might take care of some of what we've seen. And then fractions of down under E1 is fractions of hours over 30 minutes to be computed toward a contact hour. And then under number 3, the independent study credit that is based on the time required to complete the offering as documented by the provider's pilot test results or determined by the Mergener formula. So they're basically saying that the amount of CNE awarded for an independent study could be calculated by either one of those methods. Okay. Right now, all that we have is the pilot test results. And then if you go down under F1, this is something that we've talked about several times, especially with COVID, is right now, the provider shall require each participant to sign a daily roster. Okay, they chose to strike that and just say the provider shall maintain a daily roster to verify each participant attended. So that will help that some. And then on 529 is when they kind of talk about the learning management systems. And this is a good point, because if you're looking at trying to get a transcript for someone, learning management systems that are out there do not always have the option of printing everything that we require. So sometimes that's kind of a problem. So I don't know if we need to do something more with that. And then it does say further down on page 529 that the signature of the individual responsible for the providership can be handwritten or electronic. We see a lot of electronic nowadays, definitely. And then it talks about down at the bottom of the page, G, the following statement should show up on the certificate. Okay. And, the only other additional changes on 532, and they've kind of looked at this process, if they don't meet our criteria, the one that we just talked about, instead of saying provider notice and an opportunity to be heard, is the approved provider an opportunity to provide written response. Now, I don't know if that was feedback from Jan when they did that or not, or if they took this off from another one that we had. I'm not sure. I was not actually involved in these proposed changes. It was a different group that was working on it, but I just wanted to bring these back to you all and see if you wanted something done with them or.
Does anybody have any questions about any of them? They all made sense to me. And I think given the environment that we're in, particularly considering electronic signatures, and I really liked that formula. I don't know if anybody has thoughts.
I have a question. So electronic signature, will there be a definition, like what all that includes, or is that just to be written in policies for each providership?
A good question.
That is a good question. How did you
'Cause I
find
know
it?
there's like PIN numbers, or you can actually sign, or you can do a code, or I don't know.
Wow.
Yeah, because we've had that question a lot. So maybe there needs to be some sort of definition of electronic signature and what constitutes one. And I don't know.
I think that's a great idea.
I know some of the times I've had to use electronic signatures on outside things, they contract with something, and Colton may be able to give us feedback on the type of systems that can be used for it. But I believe there's several different types that they can utilize for electronic signatures.
I could just see providers maybe calling the board quite a bit, asking that question, but it might eliminate a few phone calls.
That's a very good point.
Madam Chair, this is Adrian. I know the state does have some policies on DocuSign and electronic signatures to maintain their accuracy and security, not just simply signing the paper and sending it on. There are some policies we're supposed to follow.
So maybe we could take a look at those policies at our next meeting.
I'd be happy to try to find all the info on that.
Okay. Or even maybe if it's a summary, I'm not sure what I'm requesting when I say, can we take a look at that policy? It could be a book.
So there is such a thing as the definition of an electronic signature then, Adrian?
Correct. If you have the true version of an electronic signature, it's something that can be authorized typically by a third party so that you can essentially trace back and ensure its authenticity. So you think, I recently did it a couple of years ago when we refinanced our house. It's a similar thing. They don't just accept the signature ink, so to speak. It's an electronic version of that can be validated.
Yeah. That sounds like a good way to define it, because it sounds like there's many, many options for meeting that definition. So is that what we need to do? Something like that?
Potentially. Now, I don't know what the cost is.
Oh.
Well, and is it something we would
that.
need to do, or is that something we would require the providers to do when they're signing their documents?
It might be worthwhile too to maybe poll some of the other states that have CNE providerships and see if any of them have also clearly defined that. I know we could find that on the NCSBN member portal profiles and maybe do a survey of some sort. Essentially, we could do that too.
Good start. Don't start from the beginning if there's something out there already that's working.
So we could work on that and bring that and all of these three back in March. Would you like that?
I think that sounds like a great idea.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing all that and going through that detail, Carol. That was helpful.
And I have one more comment. Sorry. And this is really small, but I know it kind of stumped us if you go word for word by regulation. Kind of clearing up, it's worded a little different in different places. Like on page 525, section 5, under the way offerings less than 30 minutes. In some areas it says over 30 minutes. So does that mean it has to be 31 minutes? And then on contact hours definition, it says fractions of hours, or no, offering definition, it says shall consist of at least 30 minutes. So in some areas it says less than 30, some says over 30. So does that mean it has to be 31? And then other places it says at least 30. So I don't know, we kind of got into that discussion one day, and I don't know if that could be cleaned up a little bit so it's a little more consistent everywhere.
Sure, we can look at that. No, definitely. Yeah.
And has there ever been any talk of going to a 60-minute hour instead of 50?
Not that I know of. I know, I don't know if we're one of the few states that do that or what, but people are just real happy on their IOAs if they've approved some, if they've attended somewhere else and they've told them that they get 3 hours and we give them 3.2 or something. And they're like, wow, what's the deal? And it's like, okay, it's because we figure it on 50 minutes and they figure it on 60. Same thing with some of the, the advanced practice that maybe they go with CME or something, and then they want nursing for it. And yeah, so there's a lot of confusion about that. Usually they're happy though, because they get more.
They get more. Yeah, I know, like EMS, I think just switched to a 60-minute clock hour. Mm-hmm. And then CME 60. I know when you start doing allied health, some are 50, some are 60. So I just didn't know if there had ever been a conversation about me.
Not that I know of, and I don't know the rationale for the 50. It's been there. I don't know.
Any other comments? So we've talked a little bit about maybe some agenda items and looking at these 3 statutes again in our March meeting. Are there any other agenda items that the committee would like to see? anything else to discuss today? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Madam Chair, this is Rebecca. I so move to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Rebecca. Is there a second?
Giovanni Gonell, second.
Thank you, Giovanni. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? And our meeting's closed. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon.